Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. And what a night of hoops it was. These playoffs continue to deliver incredible, memorable performances, wild upsets, wild series in general. And I feel like I said in my playoff predictions video, we are in for one of the craziest playoffs of all time. Like, some of the upsets that are brewing, some of the moments that we've had already have been ridiculous. And this night kind of brought it all to a head. This was some amazing basketball that I have to get into. Real quick, I do want to say the lighting probably isn't great. One of my ring lights broke right before recording this video, so hopefully it works. But regardless of that, we've got to talk about the basketball. And if you've paid attention at all to the NBA news cycle over the past 24 hours, I guess, or I guess a little bit less than that as you're first seeing this video if you're watching it upon release, which if you are, appreciate that. But you know we have to talk about Heat versus Bucks first, because this is a series that I genuinely thought I was hardly going to talk about in these first round recaps. I thought this was going to be a sweep from Milwaukee. I thought it was going to be a comfortable one. Giannis, Chris, Drew, Brook Lopez, the whole squad were just going to dominate the Heat, who were pretty unimpressive the entire season. Their depth is non-existent. They don't have a very great front court to deal with the size that the Bucks do end up bringing. Their defense is incredible as well. The Bucks, that is. The Heat's offense has been bad all season. So I thought this was just a terrible matchup. Now, the Heat do have like Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero before he was lost to injury. So I thought the Heat could maybe make some of these games close and interesting, but I picked Milwaukee to get a sweep, and I really didn't think that was a bold take whatsoever. However, from the get-go, this series has been anything but normal. Giannis left this game in the first quarter due to a back contusion, which would end up keeping him out of a couple of more games. Tyler Hero left this game breaking his hand, leaving him out for 4 to 6 weeks, which originally I didn't think would end up mattering because I thought the Heat were just going to lose this series anyway, so there was no future playoff implications. But spoiler alert, the way this series is going, there's a real chance that that factors into the Heat's playoff run, and yes, I mean potential playoff run beyond this series. But yeah, so the Heat took game 1 and game 2. The Bucks, without Giannis, struck back. They blew up Miami, and this is what I thought we were going to get more of, because even without Giannis, the Bucks are just a really good team. Chris, Drew, Brook, depth all around, great role players. Mike Budenholzer's a good coach. I thought the Bucks were still going to be able to get this thing done and hold their own without Giannis. But in Game 3 in Miami, the Heat made a statement of their own, blowing out the Bucks, making it look really easy. Their offense looked amazing. Their three-point shooting is spiking at the perfect time. And all of a sudden, it was 2-1 in favor of the Heat. Now, most people, me included, thought that Giannis would come back for Game 4. So ultimately, I wasn't too worried about the Bucks going into tonight's Game 4. And Giannis did end up coming back, which you would think means that the Bucks were able to just run away with this one, tie the series up 2-2, heading back to Milwaukee, looking to close this one out probably in 6 games. And for a bit, I thought that's what was going to end up happening, because the Bucks led by 15 in the third quarter. They're up 12 with just 6 minutes to go. They were in the driver's seat. Giannis was playing well. Brook Lopez had a 30 bomb. Chris and Drew were shooting inefficiently, but they were playing good basketball all around. It seemed like it was going to be a win for the Bucks. However, from the moment this game began, there was one terrifying looming presence stalking the Bucks all the way from the beginning to the end of this game, and it's a terrifying presence that the Bucks are very, very familiar with, and it goes by the name of Jimmy Butler. From the second this game began, Jimmy Butler, as he said in his own words a couple of years ago, was stupidly locked in. In the first quarter, Jimmy put up 21 points on a ridiculous 9 of 10 shooting from the field, and these were incredibly contested shots. It didn't matter who the Bucks threw at him on defense, he was still making the ball go in the basket, and all of a sudden, it had the feel of one of those signature playoff Jimmy Butler performances that we've got many of throughout the years. However, despite this Herculean effort in the first quarter, the Bucks were still winning at the end of the period. At the end of the first half, Jimmy put up 3 more points to get to 24 heading into the break, on pace for an efficient 48, which is absurd. But still, nobody else on the Heat was really producing at a high level, and the Bucks led by 7 going into halftime. In the third quarter, Jimmy once again had a great period. He had 11 points, doing whatever he could, knocking down ridiculous shots, looking unstoppable, playing great defense. But once again, it just did not matter, because at the end of this quarter, the Bucks were up 11 points going into the fourth, and like I mentioned earlier, by the time the 6-minute mark rolled around in the fourth quarter, the Bucks were up 12. It felt like they were firmly in position to go ahead and win this game. In the fourth quarter leading up to that point, Jimmy had just 2 points because he checked in around the 8-minute mark. But following that 6-minute mark where, like I said, the Bucks were leading by 12, Jimmy Butler transformed. He became the basketball avatar. Like, he turned into the most unstoppable force I may have ever seen in the fourth quarter of a playoff game. And I'm not joking. Like, if you have not watched this game, if you didn't watch it live, go watch the highlights the second you finish this video, because I'm going to try and do what Jimmy Butler did justice using my words and, of course, clips as I usually do. But I don't think I can truly put into words what Jimmy did quite in this game, because I think you have to watch it as it all unfolds consistently. So definitely make sure to go check out the highlights. In fact, watch this whole game. Watch Jimmy Butler's performance from the beginning to the end. I promise you will not be disappointed. And at the very least, go watch this fourth quarter. I promise it's going to be one of the most insane 6 minutes of basketball you have ever seen, because Jimmy Butler finished the first half with 24 points, and by the end of this game, Jimmy Butler had 56 points. In this fourth quarter, he entered the basketball avatar state. Over those final 6 minutes, he was hitting pull-up jumpers, floating bank shots, he drew contact, getting to the line, threw down dunks in transition, hit step-back threes. He was physically unstoppable. I think you could have put all 5 defenders on Jimmy, and he still could have taken all 5 of them on by himself to will his team towards a lead. And with just a minute left, Jimmy hit a step-back jumper that gave him 51 points on the game, and the Heat a 3-point lead that they would never lose. And in total, Jimmy scored 21 fourth quarter points in a variety of ways. Like I said, the Bucks did everything they could to stop him, but they just couldn't. Jimmy was in this zone. He was so focused. Like, I don't really think I've ever seen something like this. And as I mentioned earlier, he knocked down a couple of free throws at the end of this game to give him 56 points on the night, a career high for him in both the regular season and the playoffs, a franchise record for the Miami Heat, surpassing LeBron, who had 49 points once upon a time, making him the first player in Miami Heat history to ever score 50 plus in a playoff game. And when you take a look at who the Heat have had over the course of their franchise, like LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Shaquille O'Neal, like, the Heat have had some massive names, but Jimmy's the only one to score over 50 points. He tied the 4th highest point total ever in a playoff game with 56 points. He shot 19 of 28 while doing so, and he did this while shooting 19 of 28 from the field, making it the second most efficient 56 plus point playoff game, that was a lot to say, in the history of the sport. And this was all with Giannis coming back against the number 1 overall seeded team in the NBA, while the Heat are missing Tyler Hero. He's out with that broken hand. Victor Oladipo just messed up his patella. Like, this is a decimated Heat team that already has no depth. Basically nobody was helping him for the most part in this game. Jimmy just sheer will drag this Heat team to the finish line to get a win. I cannot believe what I saw. He's always been a player to step up in the playoffs, but this was something completely different. Like, we don't ever really see this. This was a once-in-a-lifetime type performance from Jimmy Butler, who does this in the playoffs. Like, there are very few players that I want leading my team over Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. That's how good Jimmy Butler gets at this time of year. But even this feels what I thought was beyond possible for Jimmy. Like, this is absurd. 56 points on 19 of 28 shooting to drag his team to a win over the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks and give them a 3-1 series lead. Like, they're up 3-1. They take one more game. They knock off the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks in what would be one of the biggest upsets in the history of basketball. Like, I understand Giannis was injured for a few games. A lot of people are going to bring that up, I'm sure, in the comments. But even still, like, they had Giannis tonight. This Heat team is decimated. They were up 12 with 6 minutes to go, but it didn't matter because Jimmy Butler is just, he's him, I guess, is really the only way I can put it. Unbelievable stuff from Jimmy Butler. Like, I still cannot fathom quite what I watched. Now, the Heat, they just had absolutely no business winning this game. Like, Giannis returned and had a 26, 10, and 13 triple-double. Brook Lopez, 36 points, 11 boards. Amazing game from him. Chris Middleton and Drew had 14 points each. Like I said, they shot poorly, but even still, they brought some production to the table. It was just the Jimmy Butler show. Like, I don't even know what else to say about it because it's so absurd. And my mind can't wrap itself around the fact that the Heat are up 3-1. Like, there's a legitimate and realistic shot that they win this series, that they go ahead and move on to the second round as the 8 seed, a team that was so unimpressive. They just do this thing in the playoffs, and Jimmy Butler himself. Now, I will give some credit to some other guys on this roster. Caleb Martin was great. He had a solid performance, especially down the stretch. Bam Adebayo had 15 and 8 on the night, although he struggled to shoot the ball well. Lowry had some big defensive plays at the end. But once again, for the most part, it was just one of the greatest carry jobs I've ever seen. keep saying this, but I don't know what else to say about Jimmy Butler. You have to go watch it. Please go ahead and do so if you haven't already. My jaw was literally on the floor and might have even gone through it with how stunned I was at what I was seeing. It was just big shot after big shot after big defensive play after big shot. Jimmy Butler does this, and now the Heat have a chance to knock off the Milwaukee Bucks, which, like I said, would be one of the greatest upsets in NBA history, and I'm not exaggerating at all when I say that. Now, the Bucks do still have a good shot at winning this series. They have 2 of the next 3 games if they can extend it that far at home. They've got Giannis back. I don't think Chris Middleton and Drew are both going to play as poorly as they did tonight in terms of shooting the ball. But then again, like, they have been unable to stop the Heat's offense for the most part. Like, this Heat offense is clicking at the perfect time. All the pressure is on them. Like, the Heat, if they lose this series, they were the 8th seed. You know, they gave the Bucks a really tough series and ultimately just lost in 7. But if the Bucks lose this series, not only is it a historic upset, but it's a complete disappointment of a season for a team that were the championship favorites going into the playoffs. They were the best team in the regular season. Despite consistent injuries, Giannis was an MVP candidate. He's many people's best player in the world, mine included. This team is championship pedigree, yet they're on the verge of elimination. This would be a complete disaster for them, and I do still think they have a realistic shot at winning this series, but I don't know if I'm willing to bet against Jimmy Butler the way that he's playing in this moment. It's just been ridiculous. I cannot wait for Game 5 to see how this goes, and if the Heat pull this thing off, it would be ridiculous. And with all that drama unfolding, we still had Lakers-Grizzlies Game 4 to watch tonight. A game that was amazing in its own right. Now, nothing was going to match what Jimmy did, but even still, this was incredibly entertaining, and it came all the way down to the wire. The series as a whole has been very dramatic. The Lakers up 2-1 coming into this game. Ja Morant hurt his hand in Game 1, missed Game 2. The Lakers and Grizzlies split those games, with the Grizzlies winning the one that Ja Morant did not play in Game 3. The Lakers decimated the Grizzlies at the beginning of the game. They held them to just 9 points in the first quarter and ultimately won, but in the fourth quarter, Ja Morant went ballistic. He scored 22 straight points at one moment for the Grizzlies, tried to bring them back. They brought it back within 8, but ultimately was not enough. The Lakers go 2-1 into this Game 4, where once again, it was a completely heated battle that went all the way down to the wire. The Grizzlies were led by Desmond Bane for the most part, while the Lakers were led mainly by LeBron James and Austin Reeves. Anthony Davis really struggled to score in this one. He finished with just 12 points on the night, although his defense was still great, as it always is. And things really came to a head when Jaren Jackson Jr. got a block down low on Rui Hachimura, leading to a Ja fast break where he hit Desmond Bane on a behind-the-back dime to give Memphis a 2-point lead with just 6.7 seconds to play. And it seemed like, wow, the Grizzlies might take this one despite shooting absolutely horrifically, like one of the worst playoff shooting games I've seen in quite some time. Their offense as a whole has just been a disaster in this series, but it looked like they were going to just steal this one, which is huge for Memphis. Obviously, you don't want to go down 3-1, but also it was a game that the Grizzlies didn't play great in, but it looked like they could get a win. And then LeBron James showed up, because following that moment, LeBron James gets the ball on the inbound play and hit a ridiculously contested layup over the defensive player of the year, Jaren Jackson Jr., to tie this game up and send it to overtime. Ja Morant had a look at the end of the game to try and win this one in regulation, but Anthony Davis blocked it. It really never had an opportunity of getting anywhere close near to the basket. But yeah, it was just a huge moment for LeBron James, who has so many big moments, both regular season and playoffs, over the course of his career. He's now making more Lakers ones because they did not stop there. In overtime, LeBron James and the Lakers were up 3 with 30 seconds to go. They were looking for a dagger, and LeBron once again struck, this time hitting an and one over Dylan Brooks of all people to finish this game out, completely shutting off any chance of the Grizzlies winning. The Lakers go up 3-1 on the series. They're on the verge of advancing to the second round for the first time since 2020, when they won the NBA Finals. This is the team that began the season 2-10, and now they're on the verge of winning a first round series coming out of the play-in tournament. This is now 2 play-in teams between the Lakers and the Heat that are up 3-1 in their series. A huge win for people that are a fan of the play-in like me. It was ridiculous. It was an incredibly fun game to watch. Like I said, LeBron James continues to do absurd things in his 20th year. He actually even had a 2020 game in this one, the first Laker to do so since Shaq. Wild performance from him. Austin Reeves was the leading scorer for a Lakers team with LeBron and AD in a playoff win, which is wild. Never would have guessed that a couple years ago when they signed him as an undrafted free agent, but shout out to him. Anthony Davis, like I said, struggled, but defensively he was great. D'Angelo Russell fouled out in this this one, but he had 3 huge fourth quarter threes that kept the Lakers in this and allowed them to eventually get the win. It's just such a well-constructed team. Rob Pelinka did an amazing job reshaping this Lakers roster. Everybody's played a part. Of course, LeBron and AD have been the best players, but Austin Reeves has done great things. D'Lo's had some moments. Rui Hachimura up until this game was amazing all series. Jared Vanderbilt had 15 points in the first half to keep the Lakers afloat when the offense wasn't cooking. They're just good. This is a really good Lakers team. A lot of people thought it was a fluke that they were going to get destroyed by the Grizzlies. I mean, I picked the Grizzlies to win this series, but ultimately the Lakers are proving me wrong, and they're on the verge of advancing to the second round, which seemed impossible after the way their season started. For Memphis, they're now on the brink of elimination. They do definitely still have a chance to win this series if they can push it to 7. 2 of the last 3 games will be played in Memphis, which is a big win for them, but ultimately, it just feels like they're falling apart at the end of the season. The offense is just not operating at a high level. Ja Morant is clearly bothered by that hand injury. He had a great performance last game and played through it, but in this one he shot just 8 of 24, and part of that was the Lakers defense, but also Ja was just visibly in a lot of discomfort. He fell on his hand a couple of times in this game, yelling in pain and holding it basically the entire night. It's clear that he's not 100%, which is just another Grizzly that's dealing with injuries. Of course, Brandon Clark and Steven Adams are out. The Grizzlies just feel beat up, and even offensively, like, even if everybody was fully healthy, this team is pretty flawed. They lack a lot of shooting. Luke Kennard, who is their best shooter by far and one of the best shooters in the league, isn't getting enough looks. I would like to see him get more opportunities because they desperately need some three-point shooting. Dylan Brooks can't score efficiently. Jaren Jackson Jr. was 5 of 15 from the field in this game. Even Desmond Bane, who led the way for them with 36, shot just 13 of 29. Team as a whole shot 40% from the field, 21.4% from 3. It's a flawed roster. Like, they're really good and they're very young. They've got plenty of room to grow. This is by no means a death sentence if they lose this series, and ultimately it's not like, this is it for the Grizzlies, but they've got some serious issues to address, win or loss in this series, depending on how far they go in these playoffs. They're going to have to make some adjustments. They've got to put more talent, more shooting, more offensive-focused guys around Ja Morant, around Desmond Bane. They've got to get healthier, and ultimately, it just feels like between the injuries, the offense stalling out at the wrong time, the Grizzlies are falling apart, and they're doomed to lose this series, falling out in the first round after being NBA champion hopefuls at the beginning of the year. With all that being said, those are my thoughts on these 2 games, these 2 amazing matchups from tonight. Let me know in the comment section below, what are your takeaways from these games? Who do you have winning these series? Do you think that the Heat can get it done against the Bucks? Do you think the Lakers close things out against the Grizzlies? And what do you think of this Jimmy Butler performance, whether you watched it live, whether you just listened to me talk about it, or you watched the highlights back? Let me know down below, because I could talk about that performance for literally a 45-minute video if I wanted to. But yeah, I appreciate y'all watching. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. Appreciate all your support on these playoff recaps. They've been super fun to do. Gonna keep them coming out. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.